Hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial on how to set up Unity's test runner together with TeamCity. Our goal here is that we are aiming for to get all our tests that we have created in Unity. That means all our edit mode tests and all our play mode tests to run automatically inside of TeamCity. In my projects, I have TeamCity doing that every time I push a new commit to my Git repository. That allows me to be sure nothing breaks in my game project and that the project remains in an overall healthy state. So here are my tests in Unity for one of my game projects. And here are the same tests after they have been run in TeamCity. So other than that TeamCity can show us the results from the tests, it has some other perks too, like that we can see the history for each individual test, that we manually or automatically can assign investigations for failing tests, and we can also have different kinds of notifications that get triggered when a test fails. So apart from making sure that the game remains healthy, we get a few more nice benefits by running the tests through TeamCity. So let's get started with how to set this up. Okay, here I have a pretty much bare-bone Unity project where I have just added a few tests, just so we have something to set this up with. We have 2 edit mode tests and we have 2 play mode tests. These tests don't really do anything except succeeding. So we can just run the edit mode tests and the play mode tests, and they are all turning green as expected. So in total we have 4 tests, and that's pretty much what this project is. So let's push this to a Git repository. I have this repository from a previous video I did on this subject, located in my own Git instance. So let's just push this up here, and we can use it to set up TeamCity. Let's create a new branch, added tests. Let's stage all of the files, added some tests. And then let's send it up. Now we have this added test branch here, and we can use this to set up TeamCity. And if you hear some snoring in the background, that's just my dog under my chair. It's not me falling asleep. I like to have a dedicated build configuration that I usually call QA for just the tests. I want to run them on every commit, so I don't want to have anything else happening there really. So this config can remain as fast as possible. And then I use separate configurations to make actual builds if I need that. So we can just work with the build config we have here from the previous video. Let's just rename it to QA, edit configuration, and rename to QA. ID doesn't really matter, but let's just rename it anyway. And then we'll go to the build steps, where I have one command line step from the previous video. I pretty much set up the command last time, how to run the tests. Since I did the last video, I have updated Unity and are now using version 6 beta. So I'm going to have to update the path to the executable. So the build step can start Unity to run the actual tests. I believe I'm using beta 13 right now. We need a few arguments for this to work. We call the unit executable and then run the tests in batch mode. The project path is the current path. Then I like to add forget project path, otherwise the project gets added to Unity Hub. And I don't really need TeamCity to do that on my build agent. And then let Unity know that it's the edit mode test we want to run. We can either run play mode or edit mode tests, but we cannot run both at the same time. And we need one more argument here that I didn't add in my previous video, and that is so Unity saves the results from the tests. Without those, TeamCity wouldn't know anything about the actual tests, right? So I'll add one more line here. Test results and a path where we want to save those. I'll use reports, tests, edit mode.xml. And there we go. This is all we need. We can rename this to tests edit mode. And let's just copy this build step. And this one we're going to call tests play mode. And we'll just change here that we want to use play mode instead. And let's save those in a separate report. Now we have build steps set up for both edit mode and for play mode. So let's try to run it. We're going back to the build configuration page. And we're going to start this build manually just to see that it works with the added tests. We started manually with options as we have put the tests in a new branch and we want to select the branch with the tests in it. Otherwise it would build the main branch. So let's go to changes and let's select added tests. There we go. And let's run the build. I'm going to pause the video until the build has completed. And done. The build steps with test apparently run without any problems and we got a success. But we still cannot see the results of the tests here. It has just run the test. So if you go to check the actual build, we have the build log. And here we can see the build steps and we can see that the tests actually run. So it has worked. But we need to enable that TeamCity should actually process the test from the test result files that we previously saved in the build steps. So we also can display the results of them here. So let's go back into edit configuration. And we're going to add a build feature. And the build feature in question is the XML report processing. Unity uses NUnit as a library for its test runner, so we're going to select that we want NUnit as the report type. And then we just need to tell TeamCity where to find the report. I store them in reports tests, and let's use a wildcard. That should be it. So let's save this. Now we have XML report processing added to the build configuration too. Let's go back here and let's run it again. So changes, make sure we use add a test branch and run build. I'm going to pause or speed this up again. And there we go. Now TeamCity has run the test and also processed the reports from the tests. And by that it can now let us know that 4 tests have passed. And that is those 4 tests that we had set up in Unity. If we now go into the page for the job, there is a new tab for the tests that wasn't there before. And if we go to that tab, we can see the 4 tests that we had set up in Unity. So this pretty much wraps it up. We now have a working setup between Unity, the test runner, and TeamCity. TeamCity runs both edit mode tests and play mode tests. TeamCity also processes the results and let us know how it went. So we can track the history of tests and we can investigate tests if they fails. So I hope you found this useful. If you have any questions, feel free to join my Discord server or reach out to me on Mastodon or even Twitter. Otherwise, see you in the next one. Cheers!